a platform for you talking about racism as a public health crisis. You might have seen some announcements in the media. I think the American Medical Association recently declared racism as a public health crisis, and the YWCA USA decided to pick up this topic and use it as their platform this year for Stand Against Racism. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about what that means, and then we'll move into our programming for this evening. So there is no definition for a public health crisis. However, experts at the Boston University School of Public Health suggested a definition based on 3 qualifiers. The problem must affect large numbers of people, the problem must threaten health over the long term, and the problem must require the adoption of large-scale solutions. So reviewing racism as a public health crisis is using this 3-pronged test. It passes because, let me demonstrate to you those 3. The problem must affect large numbers of people. Well, we know that through discriminatory housing, land use, transportation policies, unfair local, state, school finance system, unjust labor laws, racial profiling, and other discriminatory practices by the legal system, systemic racial injustices have negatively created racially segregated enclaves of concentrated poverty, impacting a majority of people of color, as well as many low-income families. All of that to say, we can very clearly say that this affects large numbers of people through all of those descriptions. Number 2, the problem must threaten health over the long term. So we know through laws, policies, plans, and practices, racial injustice have reinforced and perpetuated racial and socioeconomic segregation and have systemically denied equal opportunity to people of color, thus have threatened the health of Black and other communities of color since the 18th century, clearly over the long term. And number 3, the problem must require the adoption of large-scale solutions. Because we know systemic racial injustices are rooted in policies, regulations, and laws at the local, state, and federal level, large-scale solutions are needed. That's very clear to us if you've been looking at systemic racism. So what we're concluding here is that decades of unfair social, economic, and political systems have created inequitable communities that are disproportionately burdened by injury, disease, and premature death. These unfair systems aren't random. I repeat, these unfair systems are not random. They are rooted in racism. And that's what we're here to talk about today and to uncover in our work here in racism as a public health crisis. So on stage for us tonight here in our virtual platform, we are so happy to welcome the Outcast Theater Collective. We have done some programming with them in the past, and if you're returning to join us again because of your experience with them, please join me in sharing your appreciation for the work that they do here with us. It is my pleasure to introduce Outcast Theater Collective and turn it over to Claire Ann. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Joyce. It is Outcast's immense pleasure to be back with, I would say, our favorite partner. Don't tell the other people, but y'all are favorite partners with YWCA. And we are really, really excited to be embarking on this adventure with all of you. For those of you who haven't met us before, we're Outcast Theater Collective. We exist at the intersection of art and social justice that manifests in a variety of ways, one of which is doing theater of the oppressed work with just about anybody we can persuade to come play with us. And so that's what we're here to do with you all tonight. As has already been mentioned, we're going to be looking at racism as a public health crisis as sort of our overarching structure. As part of Stand Against Racism. And before we really dive in, what I'd like to do is try a little something. I've noticed that when we say stand against racism, that's often, we think of that as a mindset, right? A lot of the time, but as Joyce's examples of this public health crisis that we're facing demonstrate, every day it becomes clearer that we have to do more than think about it. So, everyone, stand up and adjust your cameras so we can see you. Whatever you got to do. Or adjust where you are in relationship to that camera. Yeah? Right, let me pull this microphone a little bit closer. There we go. There we go. Yeah? Okay. Everybody standing up. Make sure you're in frame because it matters. We need to see you in frame as best you can. And then, okay, folks look pretty well framed. What I'm going to count to 3. And on 3, I want you to show me with your bodies what it means to stand against racism. I don't want you to think about it. Just let your body communicate the idea, stand against racism. Ready? And 1, 2, 3. Show me standing against racism. Beautiful. And hold your pose for a minute because I want to take a picture. Beautiful. Oh, there are 2 pages. Hang on. Got to get the second page. Just hold that pose. Gorgeous. Oh, I love that. All right. You can sit down again. Get comfy for a second. And now scooch with me. I'll get a second to get settled. So you just did a version of image theater. Which is an activity that is included in what we call the arsenal of the theater of the oppressed. And what I want to ask is, what did me asking you to do that bring up for you? What did that feel like? Where are you at? What did it feel like to stand against racism? Any brave souls have a thought to share? Even if it's lady, come on. Felt bold, says Lorena. That's great. Others? Any other thoughts?
It was hard to think about the physicality of it, getting into the body versus and out of the mind.
Yeah, right. That makes sense. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. And I'm seeing the word powerful here. From a couple different folks, resist, determined, loving the words coming up in the chat. Yeah, it feels a little bit different. Great.
I was conflicted between whether I wanted my stand to be something that was an aggressive negative stand or whether I wanted my stand to be something that was an embracing stand to embrace a change.
That is an excellent point. How did folks feel? I saw a variety of things, some a little more confrontational and some, yeah, a little bit gentler. Yeah. As you think about your role in embracing change, I'd like you to think also about the steps you can take, so that it's not just arms out, but it's step forward, arms out, which is honestly how I threatened all of my friends now that I'm vaccinated. That is, I'm going to come running in and bring them a hug. And so that's really what we're here to start to get towards, is those steps with that open embrace. But I love that sense of openness to creating something new. So now that you've stood, and now that we've talked about walking, now we're gonna get you ready to act on it, right? To act on those feelings. And that's what we're here for, of course. So tonight, we're going to introduce you to some techniques that collectively fall under the umbrella of Theater of the Oppressed. And we're going to tell you more about the history of the Theater of the Oppressed in just a minute. But right now, I want to focus on the future, which at the end of the day is what Theater of the Oppressed is really focused on, right? We're going to do a rehearsal for reality. But we're going to go through a lot of different exercises before we get to something like a forum. So the idea right now is that over the next 5 weeks, Outcast and the YWCA will be hosting Theater Thursdays. And here we are. It's Thursday. We're going to do some theater together. And for every week after this, culminating on May 20th with a public performance, we'd like to work with you, right, to create an original short play that we can present friends, families, colleagues, that allows us to explore together how best to address racism as a public health crisis, right? We're going to create a forum theater together. So while that may sound daunting, the fact of the matter is that most of us have experienced or witnessed firsthand the kinds of things that have made racism a public health crisis. And we can draw on our collective experience to create a scenario that presents that in a compelling way. And our job is to get you ready for that. And we are ready to get you ready. So are you ready to get ready? That's great. Okay. I know I'm trying. We've got a lot of talking at the beginning. We'll have you jumping up and down again in no time. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Troy. Actually, you know what? Let me back up. Are there any questions about that? About that project? I just spewed a lot at you that was pretty big. Any questions about that before I hand it off to Troy? Like, wave or do the hand raisy thing? Drop it in the chat, nothing? All right. Well, then we'll drive through. All right, Troy, it's all you.
Thank you, Claire Ann. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I do see a couple fresh faces, so we're going to do a quick rundown of what we do as Outcast Theater. We practice a form of theater known as Theater of the Oppressed, which is a form of theater which was created by the late, great Augusto Boal. And I'm going to share my screen so you can all see his happy smiling face. And sorry, hold on. Where is my cursor? There it is. All right. All right. I hope everyone can see this. This is Augusto Boal. He was the son of a baker, so came from pretty simple means. He attended Columbia University. And when he came back to Brazil, he was a director of the Arena Theater in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Now, at this time in the 60s in Brazil, there was a military junta that was, vying for control of Brazil, and they succeeded. They committed a coup d'etat and gained political power. And as this big, strong military army might, they went after their biggest enemy, their biggest threat, a artist and cultural volunteer, a person who's, I'm sorry, I can't think of the phrase, a cultural advocate. They found him while he was directing a play by Bertolt Brecht. They found him, grabbed him off of the street, arrested him, questioned him, tortured him, and exiled him to Argentina. And while he was exiled in Argentina, he created a whole new form of theater called Theater of the Oppressed, and published his essay entitled Theater of the Oppressed in 1973. For the next couple of years, he went around South America and didn't return to Brazil for 15 years. When he came back, he created a Center for Theater of the Oppressed in Rio. And in 1992, he ran for city council in Rio de Janeiro and got on board. And he passed 13 laws in the 4 years that he was on the city council of Rio de Janeiro, truly proving that his style of theater works. You see some other published works of his down below at the end of this, but that is all I have on this screen. And I'm going to bring us all back together. So, Theater of the Oppressed, in like the true pedagogy style, we're not going to show any or tell you any more. We're going to show. If you would like to read up on more of Theater of the Oppressed, our wonderful Jules just posted a link in the chat. But the quick version is, it's just theater for the people, by the people, for the people. It is a way to bring theater back to the people, focused on the needs of the people, not just those who can get a ticket to a Broadway house to see an old stuffy show. Its purpose is to use exercises and games that involve the audience, that bring the audience into the creative process, that will demechanize your mind and explore oppressive situations and find tools that can help you and navigate your way out of them and help your community navigate their way out of them. So we are going to demechanize our bodies and minds and acknowledge the ways in which, acknowledge things that we don't usually think about, maybe social expectations, settings, the gravity of situations, how these dictate our actions in ways that we really don't even notice. Because confronting racism, it requires a bit of perspective. We're going to focus on some oppressive situations related to racism as a public health crisis tonight. And before we go into that, we need to do a bit of Zoom housekeeping. Clara Ann, would you like to lead us in that?
Yeah, I'm going to be super quick because at this point, I think we're basically digital natives, right? We have been living in Zoom for about a year. I just want to ask real quick that you make sure that your name in Zoom shows up as something that if we call it out, you'll respond to. And if you can get your pronouns in there. And the easiest way to do that is to click on your own picture if you're in gallery view, right? On the three little dots, the meatball menu, and it'll give you an option to rename. So that's the fastest way to do it. There is, if Juliet can drop in the chat, we've got some Zoom instructions that'll tell you how to work on the, if you need information on a tablet, and maybe give you some clues on how to deal with language tonight, y'all, to deal with a handheld device like a phone. We've got, I think Newt's monitoring the chat. So if you have questions or need help, feel free to ask some in there. The only other thing I'm going to say is make sure you remember how to turn your mic on and off, your video on and off, and gallery view is your best option. And you can select that in the upper right. Okay, so any questions about Zoom? If you're kind of lost, go ahead, reach out to Newt or check our video guide. Otherwise, we're going to start playing because it is time to play. We've been talking and it's time to play. And it is with great pleasure that I hand things off to Lily.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Claire Ann. I'm Lily, or Lilian, some people call me. Next, what we're going to do is an exercise that was going to help us demechanize our brains and our body. What we're going to do is we're going to use a couple of prompts. The first prompt is simply come here. So when I say come here, you just go towards the camera. Keep your eyes open so you don't accidentally bump into it. Okay. The next prompt is go away. So when I say go away, you go away from the camera. Okay, I think we got those down. Let's move on to the next two new ones, and these are going to be partnered up. So the first one is going to be lemon face. When I say lemon face, just squish your face up as much as you can, as if you tasted something super sour. Jules, you're doing a great job. I'm seeing some faces. That's cute. Okay, now the partner to lemon face is lion face. And lion face, you open up your eyes, open up your mouth, stick your tongue out as far as you can if you want. Yeah, you guys got it. Okay, I think we got it. All right. Is everybody ready? Do we have any questions? I don't see anybody. Does anybody see anybody with questions? No, I think we're good. Okay, so let's start. Come here. Go away. Oh, and in between the prompts, you can go back to neutral. Here. Lemon face. Lion face. Oh, yeah. Go away. Come here. Relax. All right, good. We're getting warmed up. We're getting warmed up. I think you're ready for two new ones. So these are going to be partners as well.
And they're doing games.
Yes, join us. So the first one is going to be wave, and feel free to use your whole frame, all the room you have in your square. Wave, yes, okay. And the partner to wave is going to be hug. So just wrap your arms around yourself and give yourself a good hug. Actually, we can do that a little longer. It feels really good. Okay, all right, let's start. Come here. Go away. Hug. I'm partial to this one. Wave. Sour face. Lemon face. Well, that's the same. Lemon face is sour face. Come here. Back to neutral. You guys are doing great. You think we could speed it up a little? All right, let's do it. Come here. Lion face. Wave. Go away. Sour face. Hug. My favorite. All right, now for the final part of this, we're gonna do opposites. So the opposite of come here is go away. The opposite of sour face is lion face. The opposite of wave is hug. We got it? We're good? Okay, let's see. Come here. Oh, we got it. Go away. Lion face. Lemon face. Hug. Go away. Come here. Hug. Okay. God, I was trying to trick you guys. Okay, and lastly, wave. I didn't fool anybody. Yay. Okay, great. Thank you guys. That was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for participating. Next, I'll be passing it over to my really talented colleague, Jules. Take it away, Jules.
Howdy, folks. So the next game we're gonna do is storytelling. We're gonna tell a story. All of us are gonna contribute one sentence to the story, one or two. And it can be whatever you like, you know, however you want to take it. Then when it's time to pass the story on to the next person, think of a detail of the story. Like, for example, in Hansel and Gretel, right? I remember that they left a trail of breadcrumbs, but I can't quite remember where it went to.
You're on mute.
Was I muted the whole time?
No,
No. Okay.
you got to the
So-
where the breadcrumbs went to.
I'm not sure where the breadcrumbs went to. Lily, do you remember where they were going? And then Lily would take it from there with her part. She was on mute. And that's it. That's really about it. We're gonna try and avoid negating parts of other people's stories, thinking like improv, you know, yes and trying to keep it brief so that we can get to as many people as possible. In the name of tackling racism with public health, we're gonna focus on that, and we're gonna tell a story. And I'll start by giving you the first sentence. There once was a guy I knew back in high school. His name was Gary, and he used to go to the doctor a lot. I can't quite recall what it was that he would have to go there for. But it was really, it stressed him out, you know? Gosh. Claren, do you remember what Gary would do? I know you didn't know him too well.
Yeah, no, that's all right. So Gary would go to the doctor, and he was frequently feeling unwell, but the doctor always sent him away, sort of ignored his pain. So he kept going and going, and nothing got resolved until one day, oh shoot. Genevieve, do you remember what happened? Next.
One day he was feeling stomach pains and wanted to go see if the doctor could help him out. And on his way to the doctor's office, I can't remember what happened, but on his way to the office, what happened when he was on his way to the office?
Well, he got so sick and doubled over. He found the street and sort of passed out on the sidewalk and laid on the sidewalk for quite a while because nobody seemed to help him. But I do think finally something happened. I'm not sure I remember exactly what happened. Do you remember what happened after he passed out on the sidewalk?
I think that he was there for quite a while and people noticed, but nobody stopped to help. But eventually someone decided they should call the police because there was somebody passed out on the sidewalk. But when the police got there, I'm not sure I remember what happened when the police got there. Newt, do you remember what happened when the police got there?
Yeah, I do. The police basically started asking him if he was inebriated or if he was on some sort of illicit substance while he was still in pain, and was trying to get across to them that he needed help. And eventually they decided that they weren't going to detain him, but they were going to, I think, call an ambulance. So the ambulance got him and took him to the hospital, but I don't really remember what they ended up finding out exactly what it was. Leslie, do you remember what it was that caused that particular incident that day?
Well, so Gary was in the ambulance, and then he arrived to the hospital, and everybody was wondering, what had brought him here today. And they were asking him all these questions, and he was so ill and wasn't really responding to the questions, and they kept repeating, and he couldn't find the words, or he didn't know how to, explain his pain. So I think they brought in another doctor, and I'm not exactly sure what happened when the other doctor came in. Tina Lopez, can you help me out here?
Tina, I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Now we can.
When the other doctor came in, he looked at the situation and told him that I can't remember what the exact diagnosis was, but he did deliver some pretty strong news. Michelle Ramos, do you know what he said?
Well, I think if I remember right, the doctor, before he delivered the news, he wanted to run a test on him again because they were suspicious that he was on drugs, possibly, but that the pain was made up and he was drug seeking. So I don't remember again what the diagnosis of the news was, but I do remember that they wanted to test him for narcotics or other kind of substance abuse. Linda, do you remember what it was?
I think that they did the test and they found out that it was negative for drugs, but
They also asked him his insurance. And because he lived in an inner city and his social economic level wasn't up to par for American standards, he had Medicaid. And so they wouldn't do the testing that they really needed to do to find out what was wrong. So after they found out he didn't have a drug problem, they sent him on his way without really diagnosing the problem. And I don't know, Tara, do you remember what happened after they sent him away?
Yeah, I remember real clearly. He continued to complain that even though, they tested for the drugs and he was trying to say that it wasn't drug related, that he had a doctor that he'd been going to. He was trying to give them information to contact his doctor. But again, his insurance was an issue. And so they really didn't trust what he was saying. And so I remember he was trying to reach someone to try to help him. Goodness, Donna, do you remember who he was trying to reach to try to help him?
I think he was trying to find, maybe locate some of his friends, because he had been somewhat estranged from his family for a long time. And so he was just trying to remember the numbers of his friends, the ones who kind of stepped in to be his family during those years of time when he was struggling so much. And all I remember, to be honest, about the time is how they kept asking him the same questions about whether he was on drugs, whether he was just drinking, and how after the fact that when they realized he didn't have insurance, that they were kind of done with him, even though he wasn't feeling any better than when he started entering the hospital or when he fell on the sidewalk. But I wish I could remember how it all ended, but I can't. Can you help me with that, Kathy?
We have it,
Debbie,
Kathy?
did Kathy come in? Because they just texted me that their internet went down.
Oh, I see. Can you help me, Debbie?
Oh, Nikki. Yeah, you know what I remember after that, it was quite an ordeal. He was not able to find a friend because she couldn't remember the phone numbers because who remembers phone numbers anymore? But what happened then is that they gave him the information for a shelter or some other facility that really still wasn't what he needed. He needed some health care still. So they kind of left him in a lurch and sent him to another location. I don't remember though what happened at that location. So I'm wondering, Maria, do you remember what happened at that location?
Yeah, so the pain got so severe that he was completely unresponsive. And finally, because he was just in so much pain, at that other location, they finally checked to figure out what was going on. And they figured out that he had an ulcer and that the ulcer had gotten worse and it had perforated. And it was at that point was going to need surgery. They could no longer just treat it with a medical or medicine. They had to at that point have to do surgery because they waited so long. And then from there, I'm not sure exactly what happened after that. Mary Beth, do you remember what happened after that?
I do. I do remember that once they decided that Gary needed surgery,
They scheduled it for him. Unfortunately, they kind of put him down at the bottom of the list. So all of the people that had private insurance and had things already scheduled, they got taken care of first. So he remained in pain. They treated him a little bit for the pain, but he was still very uncomfortable for, I think it was about 3 weeks until his surgery. But I can't quite remember how that went. Rashida, do you remember?
Oh my goodness. So once he was scheduled and he was in for the surgery, oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm not really sure if I'm just, okay, so once he was scheduled for the surgery and it took about 3 weeks to get in. After that, he went through the surgery and then he was sent home. But once he was sent home, his pain wasn't really managed still well after the surgery, and he really didn't understand really his discharge instructions. So he was still left a little confused and felt that he wasn't really being taken care of. Let's see. Troy, do you know what happened after that?
Yes, that was a pretty aggressive surgery. Most people, when they're discharged after going through something like that, they are given pretty hefty painkillers to deal with the drugs, or sorry, to deal with the pain. Although in his medical history, they found notes from the hospital from when he was first admitted that they were wondering if this man is on drugs. So they just sent him home with simple Tylenol 3. He had to supplement the Tylenol 3 just with extra Aleve and just over-the-counter Tylenol, just to get to a point where he could stand. He went back to the hospital and asked if they could get him something higher. They refused. He did eventually get a bill for the surgery, and from the initial hospital visit, the Medicare could not cover much. But unfortunately, he experienced so much abdominal pain from all the Tylenol and extra over-the-counter meds that he had to take that he was kind of worse for wear. He eventually did find a doctor that was able to really sit down and work with him, and found out that in the beginning he had acute appendicitis, and if they had treated it earlier, he wouldn't have had to have gone into years of surgery and medical bills. And he eventually had to go back in and have his appendix and about a fourth of his large intestine removed, just to stop any other infection that may have caused. His doctor told him that if he had waited any longer, if this had not been found, that he could have developed sepsis. It should have been much easier, but it was not, thankfully, as worse as it could have been. But I'm glad that he did finally get help, though. I think that was everyone that went, and I cannot remember where is Claire. Okay, that. Oh, let me kick Jules. Do you want to kick it back to you, Jules?
Yeah. So we have an ending to our story. Gary discovered he could have had sepsis. He did not have sepsis. I'm going to kick this over to Claire Ann in a second to debrief that story. But I want to say one of the great things about this is we get kind of a perspective about where everyone's mind is when we hear racism and public health and where we're all at and what we think is an issue. Maybe it was not worded as eloquently, but I'm going to pass it over to Claire for a more detailed debrief.
Oh, well, thank you, Jules, and thank you, everyone, for a really compelling story, actually. I want to start with actually a tough question. Sometimes we start with softballs, but what was never stated explicitly about Gary? What was assumed as we told that story?
That he was a person of color.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And how did that influence the story we told?
We knew that made it more likely that he would not be taken seriously, that it made it more likely that his concerns would be dismissed.
Mm-hmm.
As I was listening, I was fearful he was going to die, that was going to be the end of the story.
You know, I'll tell you right now, right here in my notes, it says, did Gary survive? Because I was wondering the same thing. Yeah, what else? What else?
I think assumptions were being made because of him being of color, that there was drug abuse or that his medical condition wasn't something that was legitimate because of his skin color.
Mm-hmm. And what we never said, what color is that skin? What do we mean when we say person of color?
I assumed that he was Black. That's what I was thinking.
That is such a great question, right? It's anyone other than, I guess, white, however we define white.
I think that's, that's something we need to think about, right? Because while white supremacy is always operating in the same way, right? Folks encounter the way that they're victimized by white supremacy differently based on those things. So just to sort of make life really uncomfortable right away, how many folks thought Gary was Black? Many folks assumed that. Okay. And how many folks thought Gary was Latinx, Chicanx? Okay. Okay. How many folks thought East Asian? South Asian? Pacific Islander? Indigenous? Okay.
I thought transgender. That's what I thought we were dealing with.
And what in the story that we all told together, right? What in the story led you there?
I thought he might be Hispanic because maybe there was a language barrier because he couldn't communicate.
Interesting. Yeah, that did come up, right? Right. There was a question of whether or not he was being understood. Right.
Yeah, maybe they thought because of how he was presenting that he spoke a different language than he was comfortable speaking in medical terms. I personally have been given discharge information in Spanish. I do not speak Spanish.
Interesting. Yeah.
I thought he was Hispanic, I think because I was trying to connect to it. So I put him to be like my father or my grandfather, because I know they've experienced same things.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really important point, just to talk about for just a moment. Is it Sinai? Is that correct, or is it Sinai? I want to make sure I'm saying it correctly.
It's Sinai.
Sinai. I was way off. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. It's a really key point to make, right? That the stories that we tell, right, and what stories get told often reflect the teller. Yeah. And how we interpret that, right, doesn't always align with teller's intentions. How we're interpreting always also comes from within, right? And so stories are where these things meet. But when we are together, the tellers and the interpreters, right, we're able to make sure that our experiences, right, shine through. And so I think that's something key to our work together, both tonight and over the course of the next 5 weeks, is that to be constantly thinking about how we engage with the stories we tell, and how the way stories reflect reality, right? Individual reality and bigger reality. So I just thank you, Sinai. That's just a gorgeous point. All right, what else came up during this story? What else did we discover?
I was also wondering if he was if he was a person of color, if he just was had a pre-existing condition simply for the fact that he was a person of color. That means he has a higher likelihood of having grown up with lesser opportunities, of maybe a poorer environment. Well, poorer environment in the sense that literally the environment, he may have lived in a space where the air wasn't as clean, the water wasn't as clean, the food available wasn't as nutritious. Um, and yeah, it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We don't allow people in those situations to get a healthy start, and then when they obviously would develop conditions and they try to get help, we don't believe them, and those conditions become worse.
Right. So something Troy just got at, right, are the ways that different things, right, different identity markers intersect, right? But let's think about that a little more, if we can, right? So what assumptions did we make about Gary, right? After we labeled him a person of color, most folks assumed Black. Let's look at why, and then what else we thought was coincident with that, right? What intersected with that identity markers? What did you notice?
He was automatically a person in poverty.
Yeah. Yep. And how did that show up in the story?
He had no insurance and he was on Medicaid.
Right. Yeah.
Couldn't afford his prescription drugs or couldn't afford the aftercare necessary after the surgery.
Mm-hmm. What else?
Wasn't he walking down the?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was walking to the hospital. Yeah. Yeah. So those are some assumptions that, right, hit with questions of transportation and all of those things. Yeah.
There was a mention about him being estranged from his family. That's why the transgender thing kept coming back for me. And the misunderstanding with the doctor over and over again at the early part of the story.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a really interesting piece. And I believe Debbie Esparza at one point typed in the chat, she thought perhaps Gary was gay. What part of the story led you there?
Again, kind of I want to say loner, but that might not be, but isolated, couldn't remember his friends' numbers and just was I don't know why exactly I thought that, but you know, I said in addition to being possibly a black man, he might be gay and or transgender, because it just seemed like his challenges were mounting up.
We really piled on to Gary. We really did. At the same time, right? We were drawing from things we've seen. Good. So I want us to keep some of these questions, like why we thought what we thought, right? And where we drew our piece of Gary's story from as we contributed, right? For those of us who contributed, and for those of us who were listening actively, like how our interpretations, I want you to keep that in your head as we move through tonight, the rest of tonight and forward. And I can see I've got a hand up. Newt, what you got? And yes, Donna, yes.
I was also making the assumption that Gary might have been fatter because my partner has certainly dealt with certain things, has encountered people in medical establishments where when she had issues that were unrelated to weight, the first response would be, well, you need to lose weight, regardless of whether or not it was related to that. And I think that coupled with, I had also assumed that he was Black. There is the medical industry's assumption that was in their textbooks until very recently that Black people do not feel as much pain. So.
I just add to that too, to Newt's statement. I just want to quickly share that is so true, and it actually happened to me. And I was in an inner city. I was on Medicaid, and I'd go to the doctors, and they would test me. They assumed I was going to be predisposed to diabetes, and that's all they tested me for. Long story short, years later, my kidney failed, and they didn't check for it because I didn't have the insurance, the right insurance, and everything else. Happy ending, I had a transplant, but that's very true, and they just make their assumptions.
You know, I think it's interesting that we've really focused on Gary, but I also think in the story, there was a lot that talked about the system and what people believed the system was like, at least for this person that they had identified as being a person of color. But this was not a story about a system that was there to help somebody at any place.
Thank you, Carol. And I think always, right, we want to keep our eye on systems and changing systems, right, and how we can do that. So yeah, thank you. That's sort of a beautiful place to close this out and move on to the next piece. So what we're going to do is a little exercise called opposing objectives. And the way this works, this is actually an improv exercise that everyone's going to do, right? So you're going to be acting tonight. You're just going to be acting tonight. You're going to do a little bit of improv, and we're going to start you off simple. But the way the game works is we'll put you, not yet, but we'll put you in little breakout rooms with one other person. So you're going to be paired up, okay? And you're going to each be assigned an objective, right? And those objectives are going to be in opposition to one another. Okay. And those objectives are basically your goals, right? And we'll start out super gentle. The first one, you're going to be on a road trip. One of you wants to stop. One of you wants to keep going, right? And you're going to have about, maybe like 6 or 7 minutes to create the scene with your partner, right? Just talking back and forth. Now, your job is to do more than to say no, right? Sometimes it's easy, like if you decide you're the one who's driving, right? Your job is to do more than to say no, right? You need to come up with reasons, right? Why, right? Why you should get your way, and really respond to each other in time. You will not be asked to perform these for anyone. This is really about an exercise between you and your partner, getting used to, right, opposing one another and explaining where you're coming from and why. Does that make sense? Are there any questions about that before we send you off into the magical Zoom land and Zoom sucks you up and plops you into your breakout room? Any questions about that? It's really, the only instructions are you're on a road trip with your partner. One of you wants to stop. One of you wants to keep going. And you have a conversation about it. Yeah? Yeah, real simple. And some of you might be dropped in with us because we're going to drop in everybody. Okay? Although except maybe Jules. And Jules, go ahead. It doesn't look like there are questions. Go ahead, drop us in, bring us back in about 7 minutes. Okay?
Good.
We'll see you in the rooms. Hopefully, is it doing it? Woohoo! Here we go. Bye.
Hi, I left the breakout room because nobody was in it but me. And I don't
Gotcha.
want to fight with myself for 7 minutes.
You're paired with Dr. Agosto. I don't know if they're here.
Well, they're here in this main room, so they never joined.
Right. I think they might just be stepped away.
Okay.
So if you'd like.
Sorry. I am here. I didn't realize. Sorry.
Okay.
Oh, it's all good.
That's great. So should we go back to the rooms? Can we do that?
Yeah. There should be a button for you.
Uh-oh.
Okay, it disappeared. I don't know if I can find it again or.
Gotcha.
It did disappear.
Well,
should we just do it here?
You're more than welcome to. I'm not sure how to send you back. That does not seem to be
an option.
Is there a little button on the bottom of your screen that says breakout rooms?
There isn't.
No.
Oh, wait, breakout rooms. Yes. So yes, absolutely right. So Dr. Augusta, if you click on the little square that says breakout rooms, it'll give you an option to join breakout room 6.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't see it, and actually am driving for another 2 minutes. So if we could do it here, and I can be the one that says I want to stop.
That is absolutely fine.
How do we know who wants to stop and who wants to go? Do we just pick?
Oh, I'm driving now, and I actually want to stop. So
Okay,
I can...
well then that'll be your role.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to say that we should keep going, Dr. Augusta. We should keep going because we're on a deadline and we're going to be late if we stop. And so it's really important that we just keep going and we get there and we get there on time.
But I need gas, so I need to stop.
Oh, the gas tank. You know what? There's a reserve tank. When it looks like it's on empty, it's not really on empty. We should have enough gas to get there.
Oh, I didn't realize that, but I actually have to go to the bathroom too, so I really need to stop.
Yeah, I was thinking I had to go to the bathroom too, but if you wait long enough, that feeling kind of goes away. We'll just make sure we don't drink any water in the meantime.
Okay. Well, there's a beautiful view here, and I think we should see it as the sun begins to set.
Oh,
Would you like that?
That is a pretty view. You're right. That is a really pretty view. Let's just look at it as we go by.
But I can't see it as well because I'm driving. I really can't see.
Well, I can describe it to you. I can tell you how feel like I'm arguing with my kids.
Right. Wow. Yeah, but then it's only like through your eyes. I would like to see it through my eyes.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can understand that. I think the view's gone now, though. You know, it's kind of too late. We already passed it.
Okay. Well, I'm falling asleep. I need to pull over.
Oh, that's a tough one to argue with. Don't fall asleep. Hi, Tina. Hi, Sanae. We are me and Dr. Augusta are doing it in the main room because we got kicked out of the breakout room, and so we're just doing it. Did you guys yours?
Tina's audio wasn't working, so we're like, let's go. Let's try to log out and log back in. So
got it. I think 6 or 7 minutes is a lot of time to argue about stopping or not stopping.
It is.
Well, we can replay some of it if you want for the audience.
Can swap sides?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Oh, swap sides. Oh, that view you were talking about? I think we need to stop and see it.
Okay, so now you're driving.
Yeah, I'm driving.
Okay.
So can we pull over and look at this view?
Oh, no, we really need to keep going because there is someone following us and I don't feel safe.
Oh, yeah. I think that if we pull over at this pull off where there's a lot of other cars, that might be the best thing we can do, because if they keep going, we'll know for sure that they're not, following us. And if they stop, there's a whole bunch of people here, so there's nothing they can do.
Yeah, but then they're camouflaged. Then I can't pick them out in the crowd. So then I feel less safe. We should keep going.
Well, I kind of also need to stop at the bathroom, and there's also a bathroom at this rest stop.
Well, some wise person recently told me if you hold it long enough, it will just go away.
Well, I don't think that person knew what they were talking about. Actually, I think it's just getting worse, and I really have to go.
Well, I think there's some can or bucket you can use. I can help you. Or wait a minute, you wear Depends.
Oh,
so we
my
can
God,
keep
that's going. Oh, that is too funny. So it's really hard to argue both sides of one argument, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be more creative, right? Just keep reaching.
Yeah.
Yes. I think having kids too.
Right, it's like having kids. But Mom, you said.
Right.
Hi, Brenda.
I've been multitasking, trying to make dinner and stuff and eat at the same time. I've been off the screen trying to listen in, and
only so much we can do, right? Yeah. We had some fun arguing about whether to stop at the rest stop. So
we flipped it up. We started arguing one point, stopped and had dinner, and went the other.
we switched it too. And then we heard our own arguments used against us. There's like having kids.
Any other attorneys? Were you arguing with another attorney?
No, I think I'm arguing with a doctor.
And another mom.
Another mom, that's right. We both felt like we were talking to our kids.
Folks should be coming back in now.
Well, it was good arguing with you.
It was fun. Thank you.
Welcome.
I know we're waiting for people to come in, but I will just say I was paired with Carol, and we have traveled together before, and I always lose that argument.
Oh, there's New. Me and Newt were arguing about stopping so I could go to the bathroom. But turned out the exit was closed, and I peed in the seat.
Right on. We jumped into talking about this. That was the perfect time for me to come in. So what did we discover with this exercise, aside from Troy peeing in the seat and that Genevieve wanted me to wear an astronaut diaper, which I refused, by the way. What did you discover? What happened? What was it like?
I'm better off driving alone.
I had two people with me and they ganged up on me a little bit. Like they were intense, but I have 3 kids, so I stayed strong, man. I was not stopping. So.
Good. Okay. Yeah. Tina, what team were you on? Were you stop or go?
Sanaya?
Uh-huh. Sanai?
Sanai, yes, I was. Well, my laptop kind of gave out. I had to log in, log back on, so we didn't go through the whole thing. And then when we started over, she said we were taking a road trip to St. Louis and we were in Oklahoma. I'm like, I'm driving to La Jolla next week. I don't know nothing about Oklahoma, but I wanted to get out to see the sights. And she's like, there's only cows and whatever. I'm like, well, isn't that part of Oklahoma? So I've never been there, so why not get out?
Sure, why not? I know there's really good ice cream in Oklahoma. That's about all I know about Oklahoma. I do recommend stopping for ice cream at a Brahms. Good. What else? What else did folks discover?
Well, Malik took it really serious about, she was the one not letting me get out, and I was like, get me out. And she took it so serious that she would not let me out that car no matter what. And I threw out all of my tricks out of the bag and she was not going for it at all. So I felt frustrated because she was not having it.
Yeah, it can be frustrating, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? To have objectives that are in opposition. What else happened? What else did folks discover?
So I was paired with Julie, and Julie didn't have access to video or audio, but she could chat. So it was very interesting. It was like a scrolling dialogue, and I would respond to her chat. So I really appreciate her willingness to just go with the tools that we had. And I want to get to the hotel before dark, and she really had to go to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. And what I learned is that all of my years of childhood arguing against my parents really trained me well for this moment.
That's a great point, right? How many of you found yourselves drawing on actual experience in order to engage in the improv and make it richer? Yeah, great. We're going to be looking for a lot more of that. And I want to say kudos to making it work in the chat, right? In finding a way to connect and engage, even when technology isn't always our friend. Or when, right, we're dealing with a situation where we can't speak, right? So great work making that work. Let's see, I see Anne has a hand raised.
I noticed that all of us, there were 3 of us, kind of resorted to some like blaming and hypothetical and like, why didn't you? And you should have. Instead of talking about what we were actually talking about, we were kind of distracted by how did we get here?
That's a very interesting tactic. And I think it's really valuable to be aware of when that's happening in any conversation. Yes, I was told I needed to limit my intake. So Genevieve, at some point, if you want to like jump in and be like, look, you don't get to be the only voice about this, please do.
Well, it's true. I mean, she drank a 64-ounce, what did you call it? It wasn't a big gulp. It was a
gulpy because I couldn't remember big gulp or slushy or whatever.
Right. And she wanted to use the restroom. And so they wanted to use the restroom. And I needed a commitment from them that they were going to limit their intake moving forward. We're headed to a wedding. The whole point is for us to get to the wedding on time. So can we compromise here? Maybe don't drink a 64 ouncer for the rest of the trip. Although they couldn't comply with, or they couldn't agree to that. Right.
Told you we're in Arizona and it's dry. Anyway, I can see that Rashida, thank you, Genevieve. I can see Rashida has got her hand raised.
I was with Leslie. I found that we were both kind of like, I was the person who like keep going, and she was like, well, let's stop and pull over. We were driving to a family reunion, and gas tank wasn't filled up all the way. We had a crazy person like drunk and flipping us off, and she's like, pull off. But I found that we were kind of both like, what should we do? So we were kind of both kind of, even though my role was to keep going, she was to stop. I think we really compromised together and like decided what to do together. It wasn't like one over the other. We learned how to work together. Yeah, that's what I thought. What did you think, Leslie? Did you think it was like that?
Yeah, we at the beginning we were trying to figure out who was who, because I think we got and then we're like, oh, now I think we're supposed to actually do this. So then we finally got our footing going. So it was fun.
Yeah.
That's terrific. I love that you found a compromise. I think it's interesting that what provoked it, right, was a shared concern. This other driver. That's just something to put in the back of your head. That's really narratively interesting and very cool. Any other thoughts? Oh, Michelle?
We were all very strong-willed. None of us wanted to give in. Some very strong women with very strong opinions. And, you know, I played the mom role, and we had, you know, I had the logic, like, you guys should have prepared. You shouldn't have drank a bucket of tea, you know, like, and, you know, Lorena didn't want my healthy snacks. She wanted hot Cheetos. There was all this, like, you know, no one wanted to go in the desert. We were in the middle of nowhere, but like not one of us gave in. Like everybody stuck to their guns. So just, you know, strong women uniting in not so much way.
Well, Michelle didn't pack toilet paper because of the pandemic. So we couldn't stop on the road, like we were being extra, and we really wanted a rest stop or a gas station. We didn't want the road. So maybe that was another.
I told them to use the big cup too, but they didn't like that idea. So.
Yeah, I can't say that I blame them personally. Malia, what you got?
I was having the same cursor challenge I think Troy was having earlier. Where is it? You know, thinking about what Michelle just said, I'm thinking about how, no, I don't think in the rules, right, or in the setup that you said that you couldn't get to compromise, but that's what I internalized was like, there's a winner or a loser, right? And so I'm thinking about kind of like our culture and what we assume and that like zero sum game kind of thing of, because in real life, I really would have wanted to compromise with Tara, and I was just like, no, I don't know if we're allowed, so I'm just going to keep going. Yeah, and like, who says what's allowed and what's not?
That I wanted to take a moment and just reinforce that, right? Who says, right? Who sets the rules? Yeah, like, yeah, and how have we internalized that? I just that is really profound. I think that's really lovely. And in fact, let's let that piece be what carries us into the next one. Michelle, did you have another thing you wanted to add, or is it just the hand up? Okay, so we're gonna do one more. Okay, and this one's a little more in the deep end, and hopefully the partners will be randomized, right? So that you're with someone new this time, but here are the opposing objectives, right? The scenario is that you both have just observed a racist action, right? You will need to decide somehow through the course of your scene what it was, right? What that is. That's open to interpretation. One of you wants to intervene and one does not, right? And remember, your job is to do more than to say no, right? It's to try to explore the different ways to get what you want. Any questions? No? All right, off we go, about 6 minutes. Suck. Is it gonna happen? I'm trying to suck and bloop.
Howdy.
Hi. No one was in my room.
Oh no. Let's fix
Mm.
that. Okay, so would you like to do it with me?
We can. I'm good. I mean, yeah, it would be fun. Or you could throw me in a room.
All the other rooms are kind of like at capacity.
Oh, really? That's good.
Yeah, but
all right, let's play. Do you want to intervene or not?
I'd rather just keep on going with my business. I don't know about you.
But we can't just keep on keeping on.
Yeah, we can.
We shouldn't. I know we
No,
can.
I mean we shouldn't, but I mean that's not our place, right? That person's got their own problems. They got to deal with it. To be honest, I'd rather not deal with the cops. So don't.
Oh my gosh! You out of anyone should be the one who is like speaking
Me out
up
of
and saying-
anyone? What do you
Yes.
mean me out of anyone?
Your voice is going to carry through more than if I were to say something, because you're a white woman. Like, they might listen to you more than they're going to listen to me.
Honey, all they see in me is my voice and
No.
then my shoulders, and then they're like, oh wait, oh, now we got like a tranny or something acting
No.
up. Like I ain't gonna deal with that. Like, we gotta keep moving. I'm sorry. I know you want to
Oh
help.
my
I want to help too.
No, you
know?
don't, or else you would.
No, I do.
You
I
know
do
what
wanna
it's
help.
like. You must know what it's like to feel this type of, to feel this, to see what's happening. This injustice is happening, and you have to be able to relate. And why wouldn't you want to speak up and help someone else?
Look, if I can just save my skin, that's good enough for me. Isn't that not good enough for
You're
you?
so
Don't
lucky
you want
to
me
have
to
your
be safe?
skin.
It's
You're
it's
so
risky.
lucky to have that skin.
Oh, well, I didn't even think about the way that I said that phrase, but
You're so fortunate, and you are lucky at birth. Unbeknownst to you, you have all the privilege in this situation. So I think we should do something.
Look, I don't want to step on that guy's toes. He seems capable of dealing it with himself. I don't want to be like some white knight coming out there saying, "I need this to stop." This guy is fully capable of doing his own stuff. He's a grown man. Let him do it.
Oh man. Well, that's where I'm gonna have to part ways with you. Unfortunately, I can't just keep going because I won't be able to sleep at night. And
That's a shame. I'll have
I
to tell
know.
Bill Gates that my +1 bailed. It was such a good party too.
Dang it.
So
That's it.
So
You're
that's
just
it.
gonna walk away,
I mean,
save your own white skin.
okay, hold on now. It's not a race thing. It's a look, I get it. I've dealt with some amount of oppression, probably not the same, but you know what? Everyone's got to deal with it with their own stuff. We're all capable human beings.
That's not the point. It's going to take all of us to come together to
Right,
break
but
these
is this the
systems and tear
time?
them
Is
down.
this the place? Is this gonna do anything?
Every opportunity is the time and place to make a difference. This is how we're going to build on it, and this is how we're going to get stronger, and this is how we're going to make change.
You know, people always say that, but it's not like we've ever seen change. I don't think America is capable of change.
Oh my gosh, we just changed the whole outcome of the presidential race because we came together.
Trump didn't start racism.
No, not race. He definitely added to it.
Yeah. Either way, Bill Gates, other side of this road. You got two choices here. I'm going.
Bill Gates. Oh man.
A lot of money.
Well, okay then. I don't know how we were friends to begin with. You've really shown your true colors.
You know,
but
I think that's a good place to stop it because people are about to come back.
I know, they'll be like,
rooms.
what? What's going on here?
Nah.
No, thanks for engaging with me. Seriously, like I'm constantly trying to work on this muscle to speak up, and I want to be in a position where if I do see something, I'm gonna do something, and not just cower and hope somebody else does something. So, thank you for helping me. Supporting
Thank
me.
you for engaging in such a lovely dialogue. I mean, Bill Gates probably would have been on your side, but
Okay, so Zoom randomizer, was that Jules?
did it not random?
Well, now you put me in with Maria, who's my boss.
Oh no! Yikes! That's
and I didn't even
Our
mention that
dynamics.
Carol used to be my boss.
Don't protest when they put us in a room with you, Debbie. Come on.
Yeah.
I was gonna say sometimes there's accidents and sometimes they're just not accidents.
That's interesting. So how uncomfortable would it be, Debbie, for you to talk about that experience? And who took what? I want to know who took what side and how that went.
Let's be clear. Debbie has no problem telling me what is.
We have a very good partnership and open dialogue. And we do push back and have opposition every now and then in a very effective way. So I was the one that wanted to intervene, and she was the one that wanted us to get to our engagement on time. And so I wanted to say the scene was we were at a grocery store, and the checker had been the cashier had been inappropriate with the customer and said some racial slurs and disrespectful kinds of things, and I wanted to say to the cashier, you can't say that. That's racial and that's harmful. And then I wanted to tell the manager that their staff needs to be better trained. So I was kind of pushing in on that. And Maria, you can tell your side of the story, okay? Yeah.
Trying to convince her that it wasn't going to make any difference, that this cashier was not going to change her ways, and that she would just think that we were being jerks. And I was, I thought, my worst argument was we got someplace to be. Perhaps my best argument is you might make the customer feel uncomfortable, like we're trying to save her and she doesn't feel like she needs to be saved. I think that was the best argument I made. But the whole time I wanted to just say, you're right, let's go talk to that cashier.
And I was swayed by the fact that I didn't want to add further harm to the customer by engaging, you know, and she actually said, you know, you're not the savior. But then I said, okay, well then I'll wait till the woman leaves and then I'm going to tell the cashier. And then if she says anything mean to me, then I'm really gonna get in it. And then I'm gonna go find the manager. So
I got your bail money, Debbie.
yeah.
It's so important to have friends who have your back and your bail money. Love to hear it. That brought up some really interesting things that I want to circle back to, but I can see that Mary Beth has her hand in the air.
So similarly to Maria, I had the benefit of being with partnered with Troy for this exercise, and we videotaped an incident out the window while I was taping him for his TikTok video, and I was the person that wanted to intervene. And I found, I don't know if easier is the right word, but I was more invested in being right in this scene than I was in the first scene. So I found I could come up with reasons to intervene easier than I could come up with reasons to keep going in the last scene. And I think I cared more. Like I agreed with my partner the last time. I totally would have stopped the first thing she said. So it was an interesting experience. I went into the second scenario. Clarion, you told us we were kind of jumping into the deep end, so I was a little apprehensive about what it would be like, and I found there was more flow this time, I guess.
That's great. So something I want to point out is that's in theater we call that raising the stakes, right? That the stakes in the scene are a little bit higher, not just for the characters in the scene, but for the actors as well, right? We're more deeply connected to the outcome, both in terms of the scene and in real life. So I'm glad you felt that, and that makes sense. I'll share really quick that that I was with Dina and we took roles that we wouldn't normally take, and that was really difficult. But I can see there's a little hand waving. Is that Carol?
Yes.
You waving your hand? Okay.
Yeah. The interesting thing is I was with Linda, and I became the one who would intervene. And when she responded to me and said, you know, if I intervene, they're just going to turn this on me. And that really sort of, the fact that I was white and she was Black made a big difference in the conversation. It made it a difference in what I thought my role was as a white person, is having some responsibility, and also being respectful of her understanding what was going to happen to her if she intervened, and being sensitive to that. So I think clearly, even though I was with Debbie the first time around issues that we've both been in the car together, this was a much more personal, sort of had a sense of importance in terms of how we came to some kind of conclusion on this.
Good. Remind me who your partner was again?
Linda.
Oh, Linda, did you want to speak on that?
Yes, because I just thought it is very real. I mean, we can look in the news, look at George Floyd, look at Breonna, look at AJ, look at, you know, the list goes on, unfortunately. So yeah, it could very well have turned against me because I don't look like, you know, the status quo kind of thing, or the person that could approach authority figures.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Good. What else did we run up against? Yeah, Leslie.
So I was with Lorena, and I was the
Cheetos.
I was the person to try to get us to intervene, and we were observing a young boy at Walmart, and he was wearing a hoodie and he had a big bag, and the security was following a store employee was following him, and so I was trying to convince her to like we should watch what's going on and see what's going on here, because it seems like he's following this young man through the store. And so she was telling me, no, just we shouldn't get involved, let them do whatever they got to do. And then towards the end, the employee radios the security guard over, and so then the security guard is coming through the aisles, and then the boy at the end, when we had to come away, the boy starts to run away, and that's where we left the story. But it'd been interesting to see what happened after that.
That is interesting. Can you share a little more about what you weighed in terms of your decision of whether or not to intervene? Because that's one hell of a story.
Just that it looked like they were racial profiling the young boy, and there might be something that happens to him that is unintended, or that is jumping to a conclusion that may not be reality of what's really going on, but maybe the little boy's scared of what's going on in the store, and he sees what's going on in the news, and he doesn't want to be somebody that is followed and possibly handcuffed or wrestled to the floor or whatever, so he runs away.
Lorena, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, she did a great job summarizing it. I think the only add-on is at first we had to improvise again because we realized we were both arguing to intervene the first time, accidentally. So that was but yeah, the arguments were that it wasn't our business, and that what's the worst that could happen if he's got nothing to hide. And Leslie was like, well, even if he doesn't have anything to hide, there's a lot that could happen. So I think the underlying assumption was that he was a boy of color.
And so, can I ask again, what color? Just
I think in my head, I pictured a black boy. Just based on how he was being profiled and knowing that that happens in stores.
It makes sense. Sinae, I'm going to come to you in just a second, but I want to pause and have everybody think for a moment, like how many of you explicitly, right, named the race or the races of the participants, right? Or how many of you just ran based on assumptions again? Yeah, I can see Tina did, Newt did, yeah. I want to encourage us to keep thinking about that, so that we're resisting the binary of white and non-white, so that we're understanding the complexity of how these things operate in our lives and in our worlds, and who we assume are the targets of these things, and where those assumptions stop and start from that list earlier, right, when we told the story together, sort of list of all of those populations. So I want to make sure that we keep that present, and that, yeah, that is it, not in any way to diminish anyone's experience or any one group's experience, but just a reminder. Let's see, I saw a hand up and then it went away, maybe because I started pontificating. I'm sorry about that. Genevieve, and then, oh, shoot. Was that Chelsea? Let's do Chelsea and then Genevieve. Sorry, Genevieve. And
Oh, no,
Sinae, like, how am I losing track? All right, sorry, everybody. Carry on.
I was partnered with Tara and Elsa, and I just got to say that, like, the way the scenario played out, I took the let's not do anything. And I just have to say, like, how often is it that, like, with women of color are uplifting and telling us what's happening and how we need to stand up? And I just really was really frustrated the whole time because I wanted to say, yeah, let's go and let's do this. So I tried to raise the stakes in a way for myself as saying the scenario was a Black man was fired and I was a person who got let go because of the pandemic. So I was saying we shouldn't do anything. We don't want our jobs in jeopardy. And it was just really frustrating for me to play that role because I just thought it was really, I was disappointed in myself while we were doing it. And it was just something I thought back on and kept wanting to be like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to play this game. I want to go stand up and be with you and stand with you. So.
Yeah, thank you, Chelsea. That totally makes sense. And you bring up a really interesting point, something I bumped up against with Dina, right? Which is that even as we're navigating whether to intervene or not to intervene, we're frequently up against our own, right, identity markers within society and our own challenges, right? So there's, for your character, there's a class question, right? Like concern about employment. For Dina and I, we were two women in a strange neighborhood, observing a racist act between a white man, right? Or of a white man against a Black man, right? And the question is, you know, there was some fear there, right? And so it's worth thinking about this in terms of, right, the complexities, the things that come up, right? Like what are we up against as we try to intervene, right? And all of them point to, at the end of the day, structural issues, which everyone's intimately aware of, but we're still exploring. Okay, right. I'm supposed to shut up and I'm supposed to let Genevieve talk and Sinae talk. So I'm shutting up. Sorry about that. I got a little excited.
Well, I was paired with Jules, and it was pretty intimidating because being paired up with a professional, I was like, how am I going to show up in this space? But Jules was gracious enough to take I'm not going to qualify it. Jules said that she would be the one who lets walk away, and I'm the one who wants to jump in and do something. And we didn't even talk about the scene. We just said it's something racist happening. And so we just went on with that. And I was telling her, we cannot just keep walking. We got to do this. We got to jump in. She was opposing it. And I said, you have the skin color that may actually be able to make something happen here. If I go up there and say something, they may not listen to me, but you are the right color where they may actually listen. And she just kept saying, well, no, I just want to stay in my own lane. I don't want to get involved. I know as a trans person that they may attack me for being trans. And I said, then you of all people should know that we need to help out those who are being oppressed and those who are coming up against these challenges. And she just wanted to walk away. And I told her we can't be friends anymore. And I don't know how we're friends to begin with, but we're done. The end.
That, y'all took that serious. Yeah, wow. Okay, that's powerful, and yet another great example, right, of how intersecting identities, right, impact how and why people feel like they're able to intervene. So I think that's really interesting. Sinae, I know you've been waiting so patiently. Thank you.
It's all good. It's fine. I was with Joyce, and so our scenario was that we were both coworkers working, and we had heard another coworker saying blatantly racist things, and I wanted to bring it up to HR, and Joyce was taking the part of like, no, don't do that. And what brought me up is that every reason she kind of gave to not bring it up or to not like disclose it to anyone of upper management was real reasons that people say of like, hey, don't say anything because we're at the workplace. The scenario made the person a senior in a sense compared to me. I was a newer employee. So it's like, they've been here longer. People like them more. HR might go against you. They might not take you seriously, or, you know, he might have just been kidding. So just, if he says it again, then maybe. And I know it's, I think because I was in the role of like, no, you have to keep going. You have to keep trying to I can't say the word, keep trying to like step in. But I do know that those reasons that Joyce gave are reasons that are enough for some people to go like, okay, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to continue to keep my workplace environment to be toxic and just to be not healthy for people of color.
Yeah, and even when she kept fighting, I just turned to straight up gaslighting her. Like, you didn't hear what you heard. You don't know what you're talking about. You know, just telling her that she didn't witness what she witnessed. It wasn't that bad, all that. It was a good time.
This is just a question for Outcast folks. Who thinks Joyce would be an awesome antagonist in a forum? Yeah, you got it. You got it. Yeah, yep. Just high compliments for gaslighting, which is not a phrase I'd ever thought I'd say. So, but it's about the work and about looking at the tactics, right, that are deployed to try and keep us in our place. Now, who was it earlier who mentioned something about who makes the rules, right? Who says we can? Who says we can't? Right? So all of the reasons we heard not to intervene are something that Boal would call the cops in your head. And what he means are the internalized, right, social pressures, right, social expectations, all of those things, right? If you're into Foucault, right, you're gonna recognize panopticism. If you are not into random French theorists, we can stick with cops in the head, right? And those are the voices in your head that tell you how to behave, right? How to sort of self-police, right? And self-police in ways that are not helpful. Yeah. And we ran up against a bunch of them, I think, in this last exercise, right? But some of us had to sort of embody that role and articulate it. So, Newt, were you trying to get in on exactly that thing? Or were you trying to get in on something else? So, because I want to create that space before I tie a bow around it and turn it back to Debbie.
I was just going to mention what had gone on in our thing. Because we had decided our scenario was a Black man had sort of been detained because there was a question of shoplifting, which clearly hadn't happened. And I was in a position that I wouldn't normally argue. I was arguing against intervention, and my partner, Rob, was arguing for intervening. And it felt like a very strange interaction because we were both acknowledging that the interaction that had happened was racist, but we had different opinions of how to go about it because he was very concerned that it could be a life-threatening situation and that we were morally obligated to act. Mm-hmm. And I was afraid of acting, not because I didn't feel that I had a moral obligation to, but because I was concerned that we would escalate it by the fact of our involvement. Mm-hmm. So it was a very strange situation because I felt very powerless, and it reminded me that sometimes even in situations where you should intervene and you should be able to. Excuse you. Sorry, my phone just vibrated. That was rude. Sometimes in situations where you should intervene, it's really, really difficult to, if not dangerous. And it sucks.
Well, and actually that is a sort of perfect place to put our finger and tie a bow for tonight, right? Because the work will continue. I hope you come back next Thursday as we work together. But I think it's perfect to end on that. We heard a lot of things tonight, right? That revealed that it is not as simple as charging in, right? As a savior, or not, or just deciding that you as the white person have an obligation to stand up in whatever way you see fit, right? It's that it is complicated, right? That there's a lot involved, a lot to listen to, and an obligation to continue thinking about these, particularly in terms of power dynamics, right? And we're going to be coming back to that again and again over the next 4 weeks, because I guess this was the first one. It's 5 total. Claire-Anne has to do math on her feet. That's never a good idea. But I just want to say I'm really grateful that we started, right, with a conversation between Debbie and Maria, right, and the immediate acknowledgement of that potential power imbalance, right, outside of the scene we were working on, right, and the courage it takes. So to continue those difficult conversations, right? So, and to name the power structures that are operating both within the scenes we create and amongst ourselves in the room, and then outside in the outside world. And so with that sort of big, beautiful macro picture, I hand it back to Debbie with the sincerest hope that you all join us next week. All right, Debbie.
Thank you, Claire-Anne, and thank you so much, Outcast Theater. It's jarring and emotion filled, but this experience is unlike anything else I've seen happening to help people experience how racism shows up in their lives, and then those questions, do we intervene? What do we do? And how much trouble am I going to get in? So what I wrote down, several things I recall from this evening, but the thing that I wrote down was when Claire-Anne was debriefing us on the story of Gary and all those intersections that he had based on who we are telling the story, and and I'm not going to quote her, but I think she said something like this. It was that the story reflects the teller. And then so the question I want to pose to all of us is, so what story are we telling? Right? And to think about the stories that we may inadvertently be perpetuating and contributing to, and I want to say resembling in how we show up in our communities. So that's something I'm going to reflect on deeply, because I get that the reason why I thought you might be gay is because I'm gay. Well, of course, I think everybody's gay until I know they're not. That's just how I live my life, right? So yeah, that makes sense. But so that's it. That's what I'm going to reflect on. What I would like to say now, thank you, Cambria, good hook, is to remind you of many ways to engage with each other and with YWCA. We're going to have the Theater Thursdays. Our friends at Outcast Theater Collective are going to be with us for the next 4 Thursdays. And you saw the emergence of storylines that can be co-created in spot and workshopped to create a I don't know, I don't think it's called performance, but create a situation that we can react to once again on May 20. So we invite you to co-create that with us and with Outcast. 21-day challenge, all about awareness and action. Very simple concepts, but very deep subjects. That begins on May 3rd. You can sign up anytime. We'll send you an email every day to give you something to learn about. And then every day will help you determine how you can take action on that to make a change in your community. Community learning circles will be coming up. I think a lot of those will be driven by who shows up and what you want to learn about. So those are exciting. Oh, yeah, and Cambria put that link in the chat. Rising Leaders in Motion. We're really making a call to bring in more young people into our movement. So please, if you are between, well, even, you know, in your heart, if you're between 18 and 35, please check out Rising Leaders in Motion. We're hoping to help create community leaders who have a lens of race and gender. As we run organizations and lead organizations, it's important to be sure that we're really making decisions and policies and procedures that are welcoming and inclusive and not continuing the oppressive, how it's always been sort of mindset. So we're hoping that we've got that space with our young people between 18 and 35. And we've got some, you know, late 30ers and early 40ers who still want to be a part of that. And that's fabulous as well. In closing, oh yeah, join a committee. We'd love to have you on our committees. In closing, again, I want to say thank you to Outcast Theater Collective. I want to say thank you to the team that I have the joy of working with to create these events and these opportunities for our community. So that's the team of the staff and the team of the board. Many of them were also here today. And I really want to thank those of you in the community who tested this out for the first time tonight and said, hey, this is kind of provocative. This is kind of edgy. And this is not, you know, just, you know, read a book and go from there. But so join us every day to get up and do the work until the world sees women and people of color the way we do. Equal, powerful, and unstoppable. I'm going to sign off. Yep, we're going to sign off with my new, this is my new signature sign off. So I'm trying it out for the second time. I'm wishing you peace, love, and justice. Be well, my friends.